So much of what we are experiencing in the world today is because we are in between astrological ages, which is actually enormous. It's so big that it's hard to put into words because the totality of what we are experiencing as a human species is beyond our current ability to comprehend. Yet it's also incredibly impossible to ignore because it's happening right in front of our faces. It's within our lived experience. So most of us try to interpret what's happening through the news or politics, but that's a very small part of the full picture that we're going through because right now what's happening is a cosmic event. And it's really at that level that you need to understand what's happening because the view or perspective that you have around everything that's happening changes when you come at it from that view. Your perspective changes about what's happening within you, outside of you. Everything changes. Everything is changing, literally. So let's get into it. Now, I mentioned that we are in between astrological ages, but what does it actually mean? It means that we are moving out of the Piscean astrological age and we are moving into the Aquarian age. The Earth wobbles on its axis in a slow, uh, predictable cycle called the precession of the equinoxes. And over the course of about 26,000 years, that wobble moves the position of the spring equinox through all 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, each sign governs about 2,100 or it's 2,160 years. And right now we are transitioning out of the age of Pisces, which has governed the last 2,000 years of our history. And we are moving into the age of Aquarius. And everything in the universe consists of patterns. It's a collection of patterns. You are a collection of patterns that we use numbers to language. The universe is also a collection of patterns that we use numbers to language. And when we look at the astrological ages, we look to the meaning of those patterns to understand more about the nature of the cosmological shift that we find ourselves between. We can use those patterns to understand this transition that we're in and more about kind of the two worlds that we're straddling because that's exactly what we're doing. We're actually bridging two worlds right now. We are witnessing the old world disintegrate and find its mortality, even though it's trying to hang on by any thread that it can. And that's why this is so painful right now because the old world is kind of refusing to leave. While we are also witnessing the new world being created and birthed into existence. We are in that process of life and death where the old world is dying and the new world is being birthed. It's not fully here yet, but we are kind of in that birth canal process. And not only that, but you have to remember that we are products of the universe. We are not separate from the universe. And so that process of death and birth is also happening within us. It's happening within our psyche and our experience and our relationship to the world and current events. And it's happening within our understanding of what we are and how we relate to each other and the greater cosmological web that we're a part of. It's being expressed in how we understand our body and our health. There are ideas about our body and our health that we have to put to rest in order to allow different ideas to come into fruition, to be birthed. It's expressing itself in what we find value in as a species, whether that's fear and war or love and unity. There is life and death happening on every scale and at every level of existence, and no one is exempt from experiencing that because, again, we are agents of the universe. We are of the universe. We are not separate from it. Now, the Piscean age gave humanity a very defining spiritual structure. It gave us religion, which is a very hierarchical structure. It gave us savior figures. It gave us the acceptance or the belief that the relationship between the individual and the divine should be mediated through priests or kind of a centralized authority. And for 2,000 years, the past 2,000 years, that structure has what we have expressed as our spiritual life. It told people where God was, how to talk to God, how to reach God, who had the authority to facilitate that connection to the divine. It gave meaning through suffering and sacrifice, and it gave us redemption practices on what do we do with ourselves when we've sinned. It organized the soul's journey around faith and the promise of transcendence after death. But I want to make sure that it's understood that although that structure of how we relate to the divine will collapse because every structure within the Piscean age, which is what we're moving out of, will disintegrate. It will find its mortality. But part of that collapse will not include God. Okay. God is not going anywhere. What is collapsing is the intermediary structure between God and the human. Now, to contrast that with the Aquarian age, which is what we're moving into, it's what we're birthing, it carries a very different architecture for spiritual life because the Aquarian kind of impulse isn't toward hierarchy. It's not toward a priest or an institution. It's more toward direct experience and a direct knowing. It's a direct experience of the divine. It's the individual finding their own sacred channel. And I think this is why mysticism and embodied spirituality and this huge movement toward consciousness exploration is absolutely exploding right now because that is the early expression of the Aquarian spiritual life taking form. So, just to make sure that it's clear, I want to emphasize that the soul doesn't stop seeking God in this transition and as we move forward. What it does stop, though, is the belief that you need someone or something else's permission to be worthy enough to seek God. What we're seeing right now is human beings do one of two things. They're either moving forward into the unknown and they've begun building their new foundation of their new relationship or their relationship with the divine, or they've run back to what's familiar and they're trying to reinforce it. There are a lot of people returning to church and the institutions they grew up with because what they're actually doing is a trauma response. Because everything in the world is so traumatizing right now, when your foundation starts to become fragile and when it becomes uncertain, your nervous system wants to reach for something solid, something that it knows and that it's touched before. And so institutional religion feels solid. It has buildings and rituals and it has clear answers and community and the comfort of certainty and but what it can't offer now and what I think a lot of people are experiencing and finding out for themselves is that the animating spirit of those institutions has already started to move on because these are Piscean structures. And part of the reason this transition is so painful is because of the uncertainty. The Piscean structures aren't falling because they weren't correct for their time. They were correct for the time. They served exactly what humanity needed during that developmental period of the human species. They're falling now because, and they will continue to fall because the soul of humanity has grown beyond that structure. And that's what makes this moment even more difficult is because the Piscean age didn't only shape religion, it shaped everything. It shaped government and medicine, education, economics, and all of these systems were built on the same Piscean organizing principle of hierarchy and centralized authority and a few people holding the power to the many. All of those structures are destabilizing simultaneously at the same time, which increases the intensity of the chaos. It is comprehensive, it is total, it is far reaching, and it goes so far beyond political or religious problems. It's the entire kind of structure of our society is crumbling. All right. It's crumbling because it has to make way for what we're expanding into. We are evolving as a human species, and that expansion and evolution requires us to create space and to relate to life in a different way and to the planet and to each other. It requires a total and complete paradigm shift of our culture and civilization, which is what the Aquarian age is asking of us. The Aquarian age is all about collective consciousness and the recognition that every person carries the divine within them because it requires us to get to know ourselves at a deeper level. We have to put in the work to genuinely know ourselves. We have to come to the understanding that we are in service to the collective. It's the journey into the depths of your own inner waters and your own inner world. We are not separate from the universe, we are in service to it. We cannot tell the universe to bend to our will. That's a Piscean way of thinking. What we have to do instead is that we have to recognize that we are merely servants within this omnipotent divine structure that we find ourselves a part of. And we have to accept that our job is to bend our will to that of the divine system, to the universe, to God. But in order to do that, we have to understand what we are witnessing and where we are going. So as we see our political systems crumbling, our religious systems fading and falling, and the economic collapse happening, and the medical establishment losing its grip, and the educational and family structures starting to shift, all of it's cracking because again, it was built on the Piscean foundation of the Piscean way of thinking. But we have to look at it from a higher perspective, and we have to see this as the old world just being composted. It's being decomposed so that what grows from that compost, which are the new structures and the new ways of relating, the new understanding of what it means to be human, is what this period is all about. Honestly, what greater purpose could you imagine your life to have? What an incredible time to be alive. And that's the reason why I want to do this video and all of the others to follow, is because I want to help provide a different way of understanding and a higher perspective of seeing what we're going through. The universe isn't personal, the universe is very impersonal. When you understand that the anxiety of this moment is the old world just completing, it's a cycle that's completing, then how you experience your life changes. And I sincerely hope that this understanding that we are in the midst of a massive cosmological transition and shift between astrological ages helps you stop fighting what's happening in the world and in your life, and you start learning to move with it. So I'll see you in the next one.